On the last day of rehearsals, I took the Bennet family to the house. They had to claim that house as their own. It was their space, and the crew were guests. And we had a lovely time with them as well.
Joe brought us all down on a day when everything was immaculate. There was no equipment. Everything was dressed. It really is. It was enchanting, really enchanting.
We played sardines, and we were there all day, hiding and discovering the house.
Good hiding place. We were allowed to do exactly what we wanted and shout and scream and anything. It just worked. We just gelled completely in a way that none of us could have imagined.
It's been so happy. It's just heaven, and I don't want it to end, to be honest.
It was lovely. What a joy of a job. 3 months skipping around the English countryside with a load of girls. It was heaven.
August 2004, and shooting begins on the new feature film adaptation of Jane Austen's masterpiece, Pride and Prejudice. Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadyen will head an extraordinary cast.
We've got people like Judi Dench and Donald Sutherland and Brenda Blethyn, and you work with these guys and you just get the experience and the way they handle themselves, and and that's amazing.
Austen wrote the first draft of the story when she was just 21, under the title First Impressions.
I think she was so young when she wrote it, put it in a drawer and left it. And it was, it's a masterpiece.
It wasn't until after she published her first novel, Sense and Sensibility, that she decided to rewrite her early draft some 15 years later, when it was finally published as Pride and Prejudice. Remarkably, almost everything Austen ever wrote has successfully transferred to the big screen, from traditional adaptations like the Oscar-winning Sense and Sensibility to modern reworkings like the 1997 hit Clueless, based on Emma, and of course the Pride and Prejudice-inspired Bridget Jones's Diary.
I think Jane Austen was a great observer of people, and she watched the emotions of those around her, and then she filtered them through her own imagination.
Virtually every single romantic comedy that we make, contemporary romantic comedy, was in some way based on this story.
Tim Bevan of Working Title, whose films include Love Actually and 4 Weddings and a Funeral, credits Austen's novel as the blueprint for many of today's most successful romantic comedies.
They bought you 4 Weddings and a Funeral, they bought you Notting Hill, they bought you Bridget Jones, and now they bring you the original.
It's all there. It's family life. The Bennet family could be a family nowadays.
My dear Mr. Bennet, have you heard? Netherfield Park is let at last.
The story centers on Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and their family of 5 young and single daughters looking for love, romance, and of course a large bank account.
Really? He's single?
Who's single? Mr. Bingley, apparently.
Nowadays, it's a thing not to get married, isn't it? Give all men a wide berth. But then, it was a problem. Women didn't have the status they have nowadays. And it was important to have a roof over your head.
The only choice girls of certainly upper middle class, any girl really, family, girls had was to marry. That was it. That was the job that they had to do. That was the only way that they could survive, the only way they could better themselves.
Look forward to a grand inheritance. When you die, Mr. Bennet, which may in fact be very soon, our girls will be left without a roof over their head, nor a penny to their name.
Well, she says you're going to die very soon, and she's quite right. And they'll be destitute. They won't have anything. The estate, the land, the farm, will be taken away from them. I'm not able to leave them anything.
Mr. Bennet, we're all in an uproar. You must come and make Lizzie marry Mr. Collins.
The thing about Elizabeth is she's very human. Maybe that's why the book is as popular as it is.
You cannot make me! Mr. Bennet, say something!
She makes mistakes, huge mistakes, and deals with them, and regrets them, and all the rest of it, which makes her a very endearing character.
I am not the sort of female to torment a respectable man. Please understand me, I cannot accept you.
I think Lizzie Bennet's quite a difficult character. I think she's quite, she's so strong-willed and so kind of she doesn't want a quiet life. She will question all the time.
Daughter, marry, is that really all you think about? When you have 5 daughters, Lizzie, tell me what else will occupy your thoughts, and then perhaps you'll understand.
Everybody believes in some way that they are Lizzie Bennet in a funny kind of way, so people get very, very protective over the character and have very set ideas about who she is and what she is.
Your younger sisters, are they out in society?
Yes, Mum, all.
All? And you only the second? The younger ones out before the elders are married?
It would be very hard on younger sisters not to have their share of amusement because the elder is still unmarried.
Upon my word, you give your opinion very decidedly for so young a person.
One of 7 siblings herself, Austen builds on her own experiences of family life to give huge depth and color to the relationships within the Bennet family.
I like the idea that behind closed doors that they're a real family, that they squabble and argue and talk over each other. But then anyone else comes to the door and immediately you close ranks.
He's here, he's at the door. Oh my goodness, everybody behave naturally.
Society as a whole starts with the family, and if the family unit is not treasured and nourished, you know, everything's going to go to pot. So I think we should take a leaf out of their book.
I loved being with Mr. Bennet. I certainly had a great deal of affection for his family. That's for sure. I loved those girls.
Lydia's focus is purely like ribbons and soldiers. She just doesn't care. She's living in the now and the present and is more excited about, you know, having a good time and not wanting it to end, really.
I completely relate to all of the giggling and the gossiping, and especially when the militia arrive. We put ourselves into the most ridiculous, lovely costumes in all different colours, and we just have to stand out. Jane's the eldest Bennet, and I guess, you know, in that time she'd have had a lot of responsibility bringing up the younger girls as well, so she has a slightly sort of motherly instinct.
Oh, Lizzie, if I could but see you so happy, if there was such another man for you.
The 2 older sisters, they're just perfect creatures, and then there's the 2 younger girls who are sort of giggly and silly.
I think a ball is a perfectly irrational way to gain new acquaintance.
And then there's Mary in the middle, who doesn't really know what she's doing half the time, I think.
Thank you, Mary.
Mr. Bingley, is it true that you have promised to hold a ball here at Netherfield?
A ball?
It would be an excellent way to meet new friends. You could invite the militia. They're excellent company.
Oh, do hold a ball.
Kitty.
Opportunities to meet rich, handsome husbands were relatively rare, so when the occasion did arise in the form of a ball, it was seized with both hands.
May I have the next dance, Miss Elizabeth?
You may.
If you're only allowed to have the physical contact in the dance, then dancing with somebody is electric. It's so charged. Playing the little moments in between 2 people in that very formal structure.
You know, they don't really touch. Women don't shake hands with men, you know. So the first time Darcy touches Elizabeth is when he helps her into the carriage.
Mr. Darcy?
Miss Elizabeth?
Which is a really beautiful moment. First skin-on-skin touch, and I think today, you know, we don't think twice about that at all.
Pride and Prejudice has been voted the most romantic book of all time. From its first publication, the tempestuous relationship between the prideful Lizzie and the prejudiced Darcy has been firmly established as one of literature's greatest love stories.
That is Mr. Darcy.
It's miserable, poor soul.
Miserable he may be, but poor he most certainly is not.
The overwhelming affection for the 2 central characters amongst Austen fans gave the production a huge responsibility to get the casting absolutely right.
Keira Knightley is, I think, probably the best British actress to emerge in the past decade. I think people will be surprised by her.
She's exquisite. She's as good an actor as I've encountered in my life.
It is scary, it definitely is scary, because I think, you know, I certainly did when I read Pride and Prejudice. You sort of feel like you own her, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way, and they'll have a very clear idea of who Elizabeth Bennet is.
Forgive me, madam, for taking up so much of your time.
They don't make men like they used to in the acting profession, I think. Is it that finding just sort of blokes is a very difficult thing to do.
What I didn't want to do is cast a pretty boy. that Darcy's more interesting and more complicated than that.
And I think that was really important. You needed to see that kind of rugged beauty. When I first heard that they were thinking about him, I went in to read with him, and I virtually couldn't get my lines out because I just kept staring at him, thinking, what the hell happened between you walking in as Matthew and you starting to read? Because he actually did turn into Darcy.
I couldn't sleep.
Laura. Darcy has become iconic.
He is the catch. You know, when he first comes into Meryton, he absolutely is the catch. He is the one that every single girl is after.
He may appear to be aloof, arrogant, haughty, pompous, prideful, but he's just misunderstood. He's shy, I think, is what it is. He's just shy.
Will you dance, Mr. Darcy?
Not if I can help it.
I think at the beginning, you know, it's that fight within herself of trying to figure out why she likes this person.
In really simple terms, they first see each other, they fancy each other. He can't deal with the fact that he fancies her, so they're like children in a playground, they hit each other.
What do you recommend to encourage affection?
Dancing. Even if one's partner is barely tolerable.
If you cast them as 7, he pulls her hair, she gives him a slap, and now they're enemies.
From the first moment I met you, your arrogance and conceit made me realise that you were the last man in the world I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
It's a relationship full of misunderstandings and pride and prejudice.
I've been so blind.
When he was as Darcy and she was Lizzie, something happened and they were just perfect together.
You have bewitched me.
Nobody can resist a love story, and this particular love story, everyone behaves rather badly.
It just totally flowed, it completely worked. There is just something perfect about it.
You really do love him, don't you?